views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Good evening and welcome to Bronx Talk. Immigration has become a central theme in this year's presidential election. Securing our borders, building a wall, undocumented aliens entering the country, the bumpy path to citizenship, and how it all affects the economy are flashpoints for debate. And with immigration a consistent central theme of life in the Bronx, tonight we'll give you a first-hand look at what it's like to enter the United States as an undocumented alien. One of our guests has written a new book, that is this book, 21 Days to Freedom, The American Dream, and he's going to tell us how he came into the U.S. in the trunk of a car, what it was like to be incarcerated, and how he has ultimately become a productive citizen, not to mention the doctorate he has earned along the way. We also have an immigration expert who will join us in a few minutes to help us sort through the rule of law and address the accompanying issues. If you have questions or comments, send an email to us at bronxtalk at bronxnet.org, or post it on our Facebook page, and we'll read it on the air during a future edition of our program. For the here and now, the author of this book, 21 Days to Freedom, The American Dream, my longtime friend, Dr. Cecil Wright. Nice to have you on the show.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you.
The book is 21 Days to Freedom, and I've already given it away that you did spend some time incarcerated. Just talk to me about where you were and what was the process that got you in the trunk of that car crossing the border to America.
Well, you know, I lived in Jamaica all my life and spent some time in Canada, migrated to Canada for a while. And while I was in Canada, everyone knew across the world that the greatest place to live in the U.S. So I had the opportunity with a gentleman who I've met to take me to the U.S. and I had two choices. Either you're going to sit in the front of a car or on the trunk. And with my thick accent, the front would not work for me.
So the minute they talked to you, they would have known.
They would have known. So I decided to go in the trunk of the car, and that's how I ended up in the U.S. And that journey itself is a life changer. However, being here and seeing the status of the current immigration system, I felt it would be an honor for me to write a book and talk about my journey and how productive immigrants in this country can be.
Let's just rewind the clock a little bit. So you entered the country through Canada?
Yes.
So you had gotten into Canada?
Yeah. I went to Canada as a visitor. I lived in Canada for about 6 months.
Okay.
And then, after I was in Canada, I realized that the best place for me to fulfill my dreams is in the U.S.
To just articulate the reality of what happened there, and to make it as dramatic as it really was, how long were you in that trunk? And then what you relate in the book, describe what it was like getting out of the trunk. Give us a little bit about that. Because you make it, it's like a TV movie. I get in the trunk,
right.
That kind of thing.
Well,
it's not as easy as that.
Not easy as that. But you have to buy the book in order to see it. That's the first thing. But imagine knowing that if you can get to America, your life will change. And I remember meeting this gentleman who told me it's easy, and I said, how easy? This was 22 years ago. You're not talking about modern immigration days when you have border patrols or patrolling the border. This is 22 years ago. And I remember saying to him, how can we do this? And he said, well, you have to speak like an American if you're in the front seat, or you have to be in the trunk. Now, my initial plan was to speak like an American, and it wasn't going well. So I said, put me in the trunk of the car. I got in the trunk of the car. It was supposed to be a 15-minute journey. And while I'm in the trunk of the car, there's a traffic on the border. Right. And what was supposed to be 50 minutes.
It's never as fast as that.
Took me about an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay.
And dramatic, I thought I lost my life. And
Because you started to feel faint?
I started to feel faintish. I started seeing myself in a situation where folks are asking me, why did he do this? Like most immigrants who leave their country, why are they trying to get to this great land called America? But when he put me out of that trunk and I realized I was now standing on the U.S. soil in Detroit, it was a life changer. And from that moment until today, it put me in a position where I take the American freedom that we have as citizens of this great country very seriously, and make sure that I can be a productive citizen to help further any cause that we would move this great country in the right direction.
So you did this, and again, the book documents a lot of what you had to go through. It's not like you came in as a rich man. You had to work.
Absolutely.
And you want to document some of that?
Well, when I came here, I came in with $216 in my pocket. That's all I had. And I remember taking the Greyhound bus from Detroit to Manhattan, getting off in Manhattan and taking the, I think, number 2 train to White Plains Road. Got off at the White Plains Road.
And you had relatives or friends there?
I had
one
friend. I have an unnamed girlfriend at the time, who I remain unnamed, who tell me, just come to the U.S., you'll be okay. When I got to the U.S., I couldn't find her for 2 days. So I booked myself into a motel and at White Plains Road.
Northeast Bronx.
In the Northeast Bronx. I stayed there for 2 solid days with no one that I knew in the Bronx, and it was frightening. But one thing was sure, like most immigrants know, is that if you're in the U.S. and you have an intention to do well as an illegal immigrant in the U.S., this is the place to be.
Because there is opportunity
because
out
there
there.
is opportunity.
So listen, we can go through all of it, as he said, by the book. You can read all about it. But you eventually got to college and
Yes.
then moved on. Talk to me about, you must have been aware along the way that, well, I'm not really a citizen. I mean, you were able to navigate certain things due to your independence, the fact that you thought ahead of the game, and you kind of navigate your way through becoming a productive citizen. But you must have known in the back of your mind, I'm not really, an American.
Well, I know that, and there's no excuse for anyone who knowingly crossed the border, come here and know you're illegal. It's a crime. Everyone should know that. But the rewards, in terms of where you can be, being an American, being on this soil, outweighs the crime itself. Let me explain something to you, Gary. There's 2 things you should know. One, obviously, the issue I have with the immigration system is deep. One, for those who are illegal and refuse to try to fix the situation, they're never caught.
When you say fix the situation, what are we talking about?
In other words, is that if you're in this country, you're legal alien in this country, and you just remain anonymous, you go about your business, you never try to get your papers taken care of, they probably would never find you.
In other words, it can be done.
It can be done. However, the minute you decided to make your situation right,
in other words, get a job, buy a house, buy a car, go to school,
you then open yourself to all the interrogations and questions, and you put yourself in a very tight position where you could be deported.
So I have to interject. So that's why, I mean, for those of us who aren't, or who are natural-born Americans like myself, we see people on the roadside, and these people are waiting to be picked up to do, maybe carpentry work or other kinds of construction work. And you're saying that, unlike you, those people are somewhat content to just live that life, and they're able to live that life.
Absolutely. And possibly not get caught. But the minute you decided to, one, file for asylum, the minute you decide to address the immigration system, the minute you decide to put your name in the system to get some form of paperwork, education taken care of, that's the minute you become a target. And so in other words, is that for those who try to be productive, sometimes you're punished in trying to be productive, rather than those who try to be unproductive.
Well, that's so interesting.
And
so you were targeted because you had opened yourself up to it, because you were a college student.
As a college student, and but the good thing about it is that I do believe that there's still enough time for us to make this system right.
All right. So on that note, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. And we're also going to bring on an attorney who deals with immigration with people like you at all the different stages throughout, and we'll be able to examine how to make it right, what might be wrong, etc. We will be back with Bronx Talk right after this. Every Monday night at 9, we talk to the borough's movers and shakers about the latest in Bronx politics, education, healthcare, arts and culture, and literally any and everything that's important to the people of the Bronx. There's a reason why Bronxites have been turning to Bronx Talk for more than 20 years, because Bronx Talk is about you and me, the people of the Bronx. So we'll see you Monday night at 9.
Hello, good people of the Bronx and beyond. Welcome to A Life in Art.
Hi, I'm David Lesh, legal correspondent to the Morning Show Open. If you have a legal question that you'd like me to answer, please send me an email at davidlesh@bronxnet.org, and I will address it on our Ask Your Lawyer segment.
What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
What's on your mind? What's on your mind?
Hey, I'm Darren Hyman. I want to invite you to share with me on Perspectives with yours truly. Guess what? What do? We share perspectives. We find out about stuff with politics, news, current events, and the things that really make a difference in your life. Perspectives with yours truly, Darren Hyman.
Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The host with the most would handle any topic.
Okay, back with you on Bronx Talk. We are joined by immigration attorney from Catholic Charities, Franco Torres. Nice to have you, Mr. Torres.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you don't mind if we wait a moment before getting to you, because I want to finish this compelling story about how Dr. Cecil Wright got incarcerated.
I want to finish here, so that's fine.
Fair
We're
enough.
totally good.
So you were in school, you in college, you had gotten your college degree, and then you were locked up?
Yeah, so I was in school. After came into the U.S., I got married and thought everything was okay. And obviously,
Because you had married an American.
American citizen, and I was home, and 4:30 in the morning, it knocked on my door to tell
Just
me
on a random
just
night.
on a random night. This was the 27th of December, just before the New Year, after Christmas. Knocked on my door, and the
Bronx apartment?
Bronx apartment. And the reason it knocked on my door was because my wife has put in my papers to remove the temporary green card that I was in.
Because now you were married.
Because no American. And then they retract and say, well, how do you get here in the first place? And so now here you're trying to make a situation right, with two beautiful daughters and a wife, and you're taken up and you're put in a detention center in New Jersey for 21 days.
Right.
And so that's the story. And be honest with you, when I got there, Gary, I realized that there were men in that detention center who look like me, who sound like me, and had all they wanted was to be American. And they've never broken the law. And so my book entails the story of 51 other men who I met in the detention center.
I was going to say, and that's how we got to, if we can get it on, there we go, that's how we got to 21 Days to Freedom. All right, so you as I joked, you've heard this story millions of times, or many times. Here's what I want to understand, and I'll let you be the bad guy. Here's a guy who came to this country illegally. He admits it was illegal. He says that if he would have tried to come in the trunk of a car, nowadays he might not make it, because I know even just going on vacation to Canada, they open your trunk and they look through your car and everything else. Shouldn't he be either sent back, or even though he's good intentioned and right now he's a productive guy, and he has actually received his American citizenship, so we're too late.
Absolutely.
For that. But I mean that this is what the debate is about. Why should this guy get the services that we get, whether it be through healthcare, through education, through everything else? when in fact he came into the country illegally. Now, again, let's realize he is an American citizen now. We're beyond that point, but I'm talking about during those 21 days or anything else. What do you think?
No, this is something I see far, far too often at my office. You know, the thing is that our system is set up in a way that there's a favoritism towards people that come in with a visa of some type, whether it be a student or a visitor's visa and that kind. And if they happen to overstay their visa and they meet someone and they marry, then they wouldn't have the situation that this gentleman had. They'd be able to basically put in their papers and process it here in the United States. It's the manner of entry right now, according to the law, that really differentiates what your experience is going to be when you run into a situation like his.
Why do we have, and I'm not talking about rewinding the clock 20 years to find out what it was like then, but why do we have so many people who are undocumented, and in this circumstance, are the borders, frankly, not strong enough? Do we have a sieve where we ought to have a wall or something?
No, I have to say that really the borders are like super secure in terms of the way that Customs and Border Patrol, the resources that they have drones, they have the military to back them up. There's a lot of patrol all along that border. Are there people that are able to get in? Yes, because anytime that you have a border or a frontier, there's going to be gaps. There's going to be ways that people are going to try to find their way inside. Where we're seeing the largest influx of people come from now are from what we call like the Northern Triangle, which is Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. And
Not necessarily from the Middle East or other places in that parts of the world.
No, very rarely.
Which is what we're being told, of course, in the media and by one of the presidential candidates in particular.
And it's interesting because the majority of the people who came in for the 9/11 attacks, which is what we're so concerned about, came in actually on legitimate visas. Absolutely. They had visas for student visas, they had tourist visas.
But then they overstayed that visa and then in essence broke the law.
Yes.
And then I'm going to ask Dr. Wright. So you interviewed these people. They were in the same circumstance as you.
Not all of them. Not all of them. So in my book, there's three stars to this book. One is an Indian man who was here for 12 years in the U.S. Came here because he was married to a Hindu, married to a Muslim, and because of some religious conflict in his country, he flew to the U.S., getting political asylum. Started a gas station, owned a gas station for 12 years, pays taxes for 12 years.
As an undocumented person?
As an undocumented person, was given the right to, asylum. He has asylum. So he could work in the U.S.
Right.
He went back to renew his asylum. I was told he has to leave the country. Now, all his children are born here.
Why was he told he had to leave the country?
Well, I don't know details of it, but he mentioned that he was asked to leave the country and was sent to a deportation center in New Jersey. So the issue with that, Gary, is here you have someone who came to this country legally. And if you understand the history of immigration, if you go back to 1700s, we understand that there was droves of Europeans who came here from all over the world. 170,000 people were allowed to come here from 1970 up to 1952. The Ellis Island, we know what happened at Ellis Island. Folks were coming here from all over the world. So this immigration issue is not new. The challenge with immigration issue is that once you now move it, and once you move it to a different set of people, it becomes more questionable.
When you say a different set of people,
well, as a lawyer mentioned, now you have folks who are coming from the Northern Triangle, which is Guatemala, a lot of the South American countries. There's a lot more questions about that kind of illegal immigration coming here than what happened to us 100 years ago. Because we're all immigrants. And everyone should know at some point in time, this country is made up of immigrants who came here legally. So that should be clear.
Do the numbers show that, Mr. Torres, do the numbers show that immigrants are, people who may be undocumented, are taking Americans' jobs? I mean, this is certainly what's been out there. And again, somebody who comes into this country, again, I mentioned it earlier, uses the various services, whether it be healthcare, whether it be education, whatever it is. Are they getting jobs that are depriving Americans of jobs?
No, the majority of the people that are coming in are doing very, very low-skilled jobs. They're busboys, they're laborers, daily contractors basically at Home Depot trying to sign on with a contractor to go do something so that they can make some money.
Do you find, and this was the wrinkle that Dr. Wright presented, do you find that many are trying to remain undocumented and kind of, in this kind of dark world, so to speak, because they don't want anybody to know about them, or they're bold enough, as he was, or stupid enough, I'm not sure what it was, bold enough to say, okay, I'm working as a carpenter, for want of a better place, Home Depot or somewhere else, and I don't mind if you have my name because I really want to become a citizen. Where's the trend?
No, the majority of the people want to find a way to be able to legalize their status. They want to be legitimate here in the country. And when I go out and I do community presentations, one of the things that they remark to me is that they work multiple jobs, they're hardworking, they embody a lot of the things that they see in the body politic in terms of family values and things like that. So they want to be part of this country. The question is, for them, is whether or not I can. And that in itself is an inhibiting factor for most of them.
Again, the allegations are that many of these people come in, they don't respect our country, they're committing crimes. Are there people that you have worked with and served who said, you know what? You probably shouldn't be here?
I mean, I see a few people like that in consultation, but they're few and far between. In terms of the people that we're talking about in terms of priorities, in terms of removal, we're talking about like serious criminals. We're talking about like the drug dealers. We're talking about people who commit violent crimes, who do serious things. Those people are a priority for everybody in the system. And they've been, and the way that the system has worked basically since 9/11 through Bush, and Obama's continued the same policy, those people have been expedited out of the United States at a rate that's remarkable.
Absolutely.
So we've taken care of that. Where we're getting to in terms of removing people are the people on the lower tiers. Even according to the government, they have 3 tiers of people as they categorize them in terms of priority. Obviously, the serious criminals at their top. Where they're now focusing their attention are the second 2 tiers, which are people who have committed sort of moderate violations to minor violations. So we're talking about something maybe like shoplifting or driving without a suspension.
Let's not look at that. Let's not look at that forgivingly. Nobody should shoplift. I mean.
Yeah, no, I understand. But what I'm talking about is in terms of what we hear in terms of the rhetoric, in terms of it, we hear about these people who are a danger to our society, that are a menace. Those people have been taken care of. What we're talking about are people who maybe have made transgressions, but they're not a clear and present danger.
So are they getting caught and in danger of being deported?
Yeah, and so we see those.
I want to move it to the, before we run out of time, to the next thing. So how did you get out of prison and ultimately see your way towards citizenship, which took a couple of years after that?
I'm married to American citizen from day one for 15 years. After I was incarcerated or detained for 21 days, we came out. We filed the papers. We went to the court, and the court
because you were married. Because
I was married to an American citizen. Had my daughters, and plus, keep in mind, I had a master's degree. I was in my first year of my doctoral program. So
that helped.
So that helped. But I think the focus should not only be on me. It should be on the millions of productive immigrants who's in this country who's undocumented. And you should know, immigrants in itself contribute a lot. Over $7.7 billion every year is made by immigrants who come to this great country. And I think even though the word illegal is a spin, I do believe that, as Ms. Sanders mentioned, is that most of these undocumented immigrants are folks who want to do the right thing. And I think in this year's election, the question should be, who are we going to put in the White House who would allow us to do the right thing for immigrants?
Well, I'm not at the moment going to make that political statement on this particular show. You're certainly entitled to do so. Are there 2 categories of people? One is the people who are already here. It sounds like you're really fending for them and saying, you know what, they ought to have a path. And then would you say, you know what, given any number of reasons, we ought to be a little tighter as to who gets in and do a little better job and not allow people to get in through the trunk of a car.
Well, I think you're right. Obviously, as the lawyer mentioned, is that I think the American Border Patrol and the immigration system have done an excellent job in making sure where the right people come to this country.
You think they're vetting
Yes,
properly?
I think the vetting is extremely strong.
Okay.
I think
And
for
that's gonna
those
be quick, 'cause I want to ask
for
him the
those
same
who are
kind of thing.
here, I do believe there should be a pathway to citizenship. I do believe, especially for high school student and young immigrants, there should be a pathway to citizenship.
So that if they're in school and they're trying to do the right thing, they should
yes.
be encouraged. Is there a proper pathway to citizenship? If not, what would you recommend as far as legal adjustments to make it so that we have a pathway to citizenship?
I think we need to make a reform in the laws because right now the big barrier is the manner of entry in which you come into the country. So if you do come without a visa, if you do cross the border without permission, then if you have a subsequent manner to fix your status, then it's extremely difficult for you to be able to utilize that option.
If you did what he did, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Although it was a different era, and I'm not rewinding the clock.
No,
on him.
it's
and he's been my friend for so long. It's ridiculous.
No,
Go ahead.
no, it's a different time. It's a different circumstance. And since 2005 and before, there have been some reforms to the law that have made it harder for people. And so the thing is we have an enormous amount of people here that are already in the country. They've established lives. They've established families. They have children who have a right to remain here.
Real quick, 10
Yeah.
seconds. What would you do to clear up the situation? What's the first thing we need to do?
I mean, the first thing that we need to do is probably eliminate this requirement that you need to have had a visa or something to enter into the country.
There's so much to say about this and never enough time. The book is 21 Days to Freedom. Dr. Cecil Wright, congratulations on it. It is your first book, but it really is, it's an easy read, it's an important read, and you will be doing a book signing.
Yes, book signing will be at Barnes & Noble, November 1st from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m.
All right.
So everyone come, will get an
And you're going to read a
autographed
little
book.
bit from it.
There'll be a lot of readings from the book and a lot of signings from the book, so looking
Great.
forward to seeing you there.
He is going to sign my book as well. Dr. Cecil Wright, congratulations on your citizenship. And Mr. Franco Torres, we appreciate you joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
And folks, if you have further questions or comments on anything you heard on tonight's show or anything going on in the Bronx, then email them to us at bronxtalk@bronxnet.org or put them on our Facebook page and we'll read them on the air during a future edition of our program. We ask you to like Bronx Talk on Facebook, and you can check out our archives at bronxnet.org. You find Bronx Talk on the lower right navigation bar. We thank our producer, Jayla Jubetis. Our director is Michael Leone. I understand Amber is also doing a little directing there. And so guess what? We'll see you next week. Good night. Every Monday night at 9, we talk to the borough's movers and shakers about the latest in Bronx politics, education, healthcare, arts and culture, and literally any and everything that's important to the people of the Bronx. There's a reason why Bronxites have been turning to Bronx Talk for more than 20 years, because Bronx Talk is about you and me, the people of the Bronx.